Aloha and welcome to Healing Ways with Kayla Ray. Have you ever wondered why some people behave the way they do? We can't understand some of their behavior sometimes. It seems insane, crazy, doesn't make any sense to us. I want to share with you a model of communication that really helped me understand other people's behavior as well as the subjective nature of what we consider reality. I think this can be really helpful for you. It was really helpful for me. So this is called the NLP communication model that I have behind me, and it's Neuro-Linguistic Programming by Bandler and Grinder. And this is something that can really help us understand and have compassion for ourselves and others, as well as to be able to tweak some of the things that are going on here. So have you ever gone to a movie and you thought it was amazing, or maybe you recommended a show to someone and it's awesome, and the person you recommended it to or you saw the movie with thought it was terrible, they hated it, and you just couldn't understand it? This will help you understand why. So bear with me and bear with my writing. So first we have an event here. That's anything that happens in the world. This could be your movie that we're talking about. And the first thing we have to do in order to be able to make a representation is we take in all of the five senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. All of those things, we input all the data through our senses, and it sends electrical impulses into the brain, and the brain actually interprets it. And things can go wrong right there. Either you have a really heightened version of one of those senses, or they're dulled for whatever reason. And we can look at something and see it, and our brain can interpret it one way. Like when we're in bed at night and you think you see a shadow, and that shadow looks like a person, and the more you look at it, it starts to change shape, and actually it's just that jacket you left hanging in the corner. Yeah, that's already a version of where our interpretation can come in and not be what it really is. So let's just say all of our senses are working properly and we're inputting things. So that goes in, and then what do? Our brain filters necessarily. It deletes, distorts, and generalizes all things that come in through our senses. Because there's so much going on, so much stimulus, there is absolutely no way you could take in all bits, let alone interpret them correctly. But you can't even take in all that you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. So we delete, distort, and generalize. Makes a lot of sense. Then we take into our filters, and I'm not going to go into every one. You can certainly look this up. Please look into more information on this. YouTube itself has tons of other videos on this. But we take in all the information that we've inputted now, and it goes through our filters. It goes through our filter of time, space, and matter, how we view all of that. Our language, the language we grew up with, the words we use, how we speak to ourselves, our self-talk. Our memories, the things that have happened to us, the events that we've experienced in our lives, the decisions that we've made, how they've impacted us, the decisions that others have made, the way we look at our decisions, our meta programs, our values and our beliefs, all those things we hold dear. We're likely to remember something that touches our values in some way, whether it goes against or whether it's for, rather than something that doesn't matter to us, right? Our attitudes. We filter all of what we see and hear, all those representations we've already gotten that, first of all, are probably a little distorted. We do a lot of this, and then we put it all the way through our filters. Then all of that has to compile together to create an internal representation. That's the internal image, the internal way you have of looking at that. And it's already very, 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 very subjective. Then we mix that in with our physiology. Is your heart rate increasing? How's your blood pressure? What's going on with you physiologically? And that necessarily impacts our internal representation, as well as our state, which talks about our emotional state, our emotional well-being. How are we doing? If any of these things are off, let's say your physiology is off, you're not feeling well, that's going to impact your state, your emotions, and how you interpret things. All of this stuff is interchangeable, and then, finally then, it affects our behavior and how we behave. So when you're looking at someone's behavior, they're not just choosing to act that way out of nowhere. They're not doing it to defy everything. They are truly acting in the best way that they can with the best tools that they have at the given time. They have taken all the information into their senses They have filtered it through everything, and this happens in seconds. They made an internal representation of how they look at that, how their body felt about it, how they emotionally felt about it, then they behaved. We don't actively do this. This is a process that goes on beyond our awareness, but it's very complex and very diverse. So when we're thinking we're having a simple communication with somebody, it's so much more. There's so much more in there. That's the hard part about it, is that we cannot understand a person or their behavior unless we understood every part of their life, what happened to them, how they interpreted things, how they were treated, what they saw, what they experienced, everything that went on in their lives. And probably, likely, if you were in their exact same position, living their life, you had the same events happen to you, and you had their same physiology, DNA, upbringing, all of that, you would make those exact same decisions. It's an interesting thought, isn't it? But it doesn't mean we're helpless. At any point, we have that free will to decide. We can input new data, we can interpret it in a different way if we'd like, but it takes intentionality. Because we have to change our values or our beliefs. We have to change our attitudes. We can do this intentionally, but first we have to realize what's in there in the first place. But anything you do, whether you learn to meditate and you start changing your physiology, you calm that physiology down, or you look at your memories and you work with some of the trauma memories and you help clear them, you help understand them in a different way, get a different perspective, or you take a look at your values and beliefs and you read things that help you change those things. Whatever it is you do, whatever input you put in this will necessarily change the output. So it's a long process, but we can change this. We are not helpless to this. However, if we're not looking here, if we're not doing our internal work, we'll always get what we've always got. So that's something to remember. But when you're thinking about other people's behavior, remember there's a lot more to it. And we can have compassion knowing that they have so much history, so much different understanding that we do, that we can have compassion for them. And we can start to understand that when they say something about us, or when a statement is made, and when the world tells us things, we can accept that as their point of view, coming from their perspective, with their filters. And that doesn't have to be true for us. Same thing with how we understand the world. It's not that we're taking in full 100% facts at any time. It's all subjective. And because it's subjective, you can change that. Just take that as some food for thought for today, and thank you for joining me for today's Healing Ways. Aloha.